Hello everyone, there we go. Good afternoon and welcome to Trading the US Open Live here at the LiveTradeRoom. Now today is Monday the 15th of October and just to give you a brief introduction in terms of what you can expect from this trading session. We're professional traders, we trade the markets with live capital every day, so every decision you made is done so in complete and full transparency. We have a process in which we look to identify high probability trading opportunities, and we look to execute and then manage our trades with a high degree of discipline in our approach, and certainly with regards to our exposure to these markets, and also a high degree of consistency with our trading strategy and our risk management strategy as well. So the reason for this is what it does is it allows us, when the market moves in our favor, it allows us to see our account grow, certainly over the medium and longer term, with one view, and that's to book in profit on a regular basis. So without further ado, if I could just draw your attention to our risk warning, please do take a moment to familiarize yourself with our risk warning currently up on screen. Okay, so just before we begin, as we always do when we decide to trade these financial markets, is have a basic understanding of potential market moving news. And for this, we're going to bring up Forex Factory, and we've had a bit of a turnaround actually in some of the markets off the back of the moves that we've seen this morning. So we go into the actual charts now very shortly, but I want to draw your attention to 130. We do have a retail sales figure coming out at 130, so and we're expected a 0.7 on the retail sales, and the core retail sales is plus 0.4. So not earth-shattering, but certainly progressive, and there'd be retail sales figure that would be on the beneficial side as far as the US economy is concerned. Okay, in addition to that, we've got a news event impacting the Bank of Canada and as a result the Canadian dollar, and that's at 3:30. And we do have a fairly sort of recent development, which is Theresa May is due to make an unscheduled statement to the Commons, so it'll be fascinating to see what comes out of that. I'm sure it would be understandable if to see the actual British pound react accordingly. Now it's going to depend on the outcome of the speech. It's very much unscheduled, so it certainly wasn't penciled in for today's news events, and that's why it's important, even if you are trading in multiple occasions throughout the day, you know, at each occasion make sure you do sort of update yourself on the news flow, because you could have an event like this, and the last thing you want to be doing is getting into the British pound prior to like a major event like that. Okay, so that's really the major report, and we're still waiting for the Treasury currency report to be released. It was scheduled middle of last week, and it's been postponed ever since. So let's see what comes out. It's probably been postponed off the back of global trade talks with between the US and China, and Trump now suggesting that there'll be additional tariffs put in place. So all very traumatic and fairly troubling for the markets. And in addition to that, we've obviously got Brexit negotiations, we've got issues with Iran, and not forgetting the latest controversy, something we didn't discuss this morning, between Saudi Arabia and the issue with the Turkish journalist, and that's creating a lot of potential volatility and a bit of fear and anxiety for the markets as well, in terms of how that's going to roll itself out. We've had a lot of positioning now over the last couple of days, certainly over the weekend, and Saudi Arabia are very much sticking to their guns on it as well, and basically saying that there could be an impact on sort of the region and certainly global trade as a result if any sanctions were delivered at Saudi Arabia's door. So all of these things, they all sort of blend into the melting pot, things that us as traders would need to have be very, very mindful of when we trade these markets. So terms of news event, we might come back to the retail sales figures, which are due out in about 15 minutes. So for now, let's go into these charts and let's see what's happened since this morning's trading session. So we've had a good profitable morning so far today. So hopefully we'll take some of that and we'll I can get rid of that one as well. So hopefully we can take that into account. We've benefited from a decent bit of the move pushing prices higher. Now we've rolled off the 1600, which is a psychological level. It's a very important level, and you can see 1599.9 would be the 1600 level just at these highs. And so we're currently pulling back. We're now at the 1580 level, and I just want to just show you what that looks like briefly. So we would identify the market sort of pushing back maybe just a little bit lower to the 1575. So this market is still looking like it's threatening to pull back. Now we're not going to necessarily get into any dollar trades prior to the news event in about 14 minutes time, but we just wanted to, we were able to capitalize on a really nice technical sort of setup really here, and we're able to benefit from a little bit of a positive market to the upside in the euro dollar. Moving on to the pound dollar, off the back of Theresa May's news announcement that she'll be speaking in the Commons, we've seen the pound actually rally to the upside. So clearly there's some potential good news in the pipeline. It would certainly look like that. So when you see a politician or someone make a suggestion that announcement is going to be made, you often see the markets reacting in a certain way. And what it could suggest to us is that there's something of note or something of positive. Certainly something that would be in and around the principle of a soft Brexit. Now, the one thing that could throw that up in the air would be the fact that we could have a pre-news event, which is buying the rumour and potentially even selling the fact. So we'll have to kind of bear that in mind, and we'll keep our eyes open to see when we start seeing a volatile pound. I'm sure that will coincide with Theresa May's speech. So we've had the suggestion for the yen to strengthen, and that hasn't really, we've not seen a follow through with that really as things currently stand. So the dollar yen is just sitting around these areas. We've had a bit of strength come into the Swiss franc, and again we've tried to break below the 98.54, and we've kind of failed. So now we're back above that level. So we'll see if an opportunity will exist in this market as well. The CAD, we do have a Bank of Canada news event at 3:30, so we don't necessarily want to. If we do, it'll be more of a short-term or a short-lived trade between now and 3:30, but that doesn't really give us much time, considering we've got the retail sales figure. If they disappoint and some weakness starts to creep into the dollar yet again, we're likely to see a little bit of a push to the upside, and the Aussie dollar and the New Zealand dollar could be primed candidates for that. See if we get some continuation in those markets. Yeah, the euro pound sort of pretty choppy really as things stand, and often when you get these gaps to the upside, it's really the price action that comes next. You know, what do we see, continuation, or do we see a reversal off that level? Especially if it's kind of a bearish spinning top, which is really what this price action currently stands for, and all that lends itself to is a little bit of indecision. So we've seen a bit of strength creep into the British pound, and that seems to be retracing just a little bit. Even as I'm talking now, it seems to be retracing somewhat, and yeah, a little bit. It's looking like it's going to squeeze lower. So actually even against the euro, which has been quite strong against the dollar. Well, not in the last hour or so, hour and a half, but prior to that it was. So we'll come back and we'll review these after the so the retail sales figures. We've got a couple of potential opportunities, buying the Aussie dollar and buying the New Zealand dollar as well. We've had a bit of a pullback off the highs now. We're now back at the 12.28 level, 12.29. So this is one of the markets that we were able to actually sell the highs this morning. So didn't quite get that same level for the euro dollar because we were buying the euro dollar as well as buying the gold market. So we were effectively selling the dollar across the board, but we started to see this sort of structural failure start to kick in. So again, we don't want to get into this pre-retail sales, but we could have a couple of opportunities, and I'll just define those very shortly. The US oil market is just effectively moving sideways. We've gapped higher in the Brent, and then we've sold off quite a lot, so that's a difficult one. Now, the interesting moves that we've seen actually involve a strong retracement from these markets pushing lower, and the FTSE is looking actually quite positive, and so too is the Euro stocks. But these could all turn quite positive fairly shortly. And if that does happen, then these could actually give us some buying opportunities, believe it or not. So that's where we're at. If they create a bit of a floor and we start seeing some buying start to creep in, then there's no reason why we couldn't get some continuation to the upside over the shorter term. Now, depending on which news channel you choose to listen to, or whatever on-site platforms you're used to, you might see some naysayers that could be suggesting that the US equities have potentially another leg to the downside, and then you've got on the other side there's a certain amount of kind of cleaning up which has gone with this market and this devaluation, where a lot of the main sort of buyers of this market are still in the market. So really they're looking at this as a little bit of a correction effectively, and what that might provide is give opportunities for buyers. Now, there is a caveat to that. That is what has happened for the last probably 6 years. Anytime we've had a really strong devaluation, if I take you back to the last major devaluation, we could look at this kind of candlestick here. It's not a million miles away from what we've seen. You can see that what it ended up doing was creating a bit of a floor off this market. So if we just took just a little bit lower there at the 52.80 level, you can see that the market bounced off that level, attempted to thrust lower, but really wasn't able to do so, creating a double top. And then we attacked this low again, and it's really failed to hold. And then what it started was the beginning of the next leg to the upside. So could that happen again? Absolutely. No reason why not. We've been trading these equities now for about 3 or 4 years. The last year or two have proved a lot more difficult in terms of continuing to buy these highs. We know there's going to be a sharp correction at some point. Maybe this is the beginning of it, but whether we'll see some continuation or not does remain to be seen. So we kind of want to go with the price action. If the price action is giving us opportunities to buy it, we can go and buy it. If it's stacking up where we're getting structural breaks and we're getting closes below very, very important levels, then of course we can then look at opportunities to sell it. And I suppose that's the beauty of our trading approach, is that, you know, if this market comes off another 500 points, we can look to capitalize on that move. We're not a buy-only type of investor. So traders trading contracts for difference can buy and sell, and that gives us a lot of flexibility during markets like this. Now, what was interesting was the build up to Wednesday's devaluation was very muted, to say the least. There was we were actually looking at the trading session of the US equities for the majority of the day, and lo and behold, when of course you decide to pack up, because there was really very little opportunity across the board, and I think we packed up about 2:30, I think it was. And I think from that point in the afternoon, and we're talking about UK time here, this market started to absolutely just rocket to the downside. So not much warning. A lot of the reasons why people gave for this devaluation are things like global trade talks between the US and China, and also, of course, the Fed increasing interest rates. But we've known about all of these things for really quite a long time, so it doesn't really feel like it's a reason for this market to capitulate the way that it has. What it is a good sign of is extreme fear and anxiety potentially, and once this market starts to break this level, we were looking to sell it below the 28.60. That was the high probability trade, and of course we didn't get that opportunity because this rocketed in a very, very short period of time when we were not at our trading desk. So a little bit unfortunate, and some of the price action and the build up to it wasn't great either. It was very choppy. There was a lot of selling going on, followed by reversals and moves higher. So it wasn't the easiest of price action to capitalize on. And then on the Thursday of last week, we had just as turbulent price action. This market pushing higher, pushing lower, pushing higher, and obviously finishing a little bit on the lower side, but really a lot of range bound movement on Thursday. So that's the US equity space. I'm just conscious of the time now, so what we shall do is let's continue to look at the S&P. We'll just keep a close eye on the daily time frame. Just on the bottom right hand corner of your screen, let's zoom in a little bit more so we can get rid of some of these. So let's just record this daily high just sitting in there, and we'll see if we get a bit of a reversal off this low. The gold market will continue to look out on the 15-minute time frame. It could easily come back a little bit further and see if it gives us an opportunity to push higher. The euro dollar, worth looking at just to see the response, just to see how this market performs. And if we get a really sort of explosive move, and let's look at it on the minute time frame going into this event. Same with the gold market. So this morning we were expecting this market to push higher. Let's see if we start getting some dollar strength creep in. If it's positive news, we're going in to some major news events. The 1228 level to the downside. So so we'll switch across now to the pound market. Is a bit of a tough one. Let's look at this bottom left hand corner. We'll just switch to the, let's see how this market reacts as well to the news events. So we'll look at the daily time frames on the bottom, and then we'll look at the really smaller time frames to the upside. So with both of these markets, we kind of have a bit of a range now here for a prolonged period of time. And let's see how this market interacts. So we do have this news event now in just a few seconds. So I shall bring up so what we can do is we can so a little bit of selling looks like it's creeping into the US dollar. So when we speculate on this news event here, we could very easily have a mildly negative number. Can I just see what this number is? So 0.4 and 0.7. So the news is now out. We wouldn't ordinarily get into the instant news event anyway, so we'll give it a few seconds. So, all right, significant misses then across the board on the retail sales. So obviously that's not good for and a strong miss on the retail sales figure as well, and a negative. Okay, so that's the worst performance since August 2017. So over a year now as far as the core retail sales figure is concerned. And it's a pretty low figure as well on the retail sales figure. So that's responsible for this move, potentially kicking to the upside. Let's see if we get some continuation. We did say we'd be interested in the Aussie dollar. If we saw a break above that level. So a slight uptick, but nothing of any major importance or concern really just yet. New Zealand, maybe this is looking to extend a little bit more to the upside. So we have these levels just sitting in here. Okay, so let's see how the price just behaves at these slightly higher levels. So we're getting a breakout of both of these markets. So really now the pullback trade could give us the opportunity. Hopefully it's not just going to fly. US equities not really responding just yet. So I'm just looking at these levels just once more. You can zoom in so you can see how this price is just interacting with those levels. No reaction at all from the S&P 500, and again, it's kind of in line with the dollar weakness trade. So New Zealand is just up at these highs now as we speak. So we know what we're looking to do. We just want to see now whether we get that clean-cut opportunity to do it. So there's the impulsive move to the upside, which is what you'd expect, and now we're potentially getting a bit of a pullback. Getting quite a strong pullback actually in the gold market. So and that's really only because these psychological levels give opportunities for sellers to actually sell. But at what point do the buyers start to kick in again and really drive these prices higher? That's what we're interested in from a psychological perspective. And don't forget, trading the financial markets is you're speculating on a battleground between buyers and sellers, and hopefully if you do your due diligence and you set yourself up right, you can stack the odds in your favor when you trade these markets, which is what trading is really all about. Okay, so quite a strong spike lower then. Let's see if we just get an impulsive move, just pushing higher. Okay then, so just posted a little notice there through the chat room. So if you do have a YouTube account, you're very welcome to interact with us. If not, it's very easy to set one up, but you can log in and then post any comments that you have. So we've got a strong rejection of this high, the 65.39. I mean, we've only just come off 4 or 5 pips, so it's not the end of the world. But let's just see how the gold market just works with this low in here. Does it still create a bit of a structure? Okay, so so situations like this where you just want to have a high degree of confidence in the trade. So we've got a strong level, a few levels of resistance just above it. So even if we do get a break above 1600, it does have its work cut out above that level. So let's continue to monitor it and see how we get on. Pound not really reacting an awful lot. Neither is the dollar yen. Still looking bearish. Swiss is still looking bearish against the US dollar. Not much happening with news out in about an hour and a half for the Canadian dollar. The Aussie just threatening to just roll over to the downside, so that's why I've just recorded these lows here, just to see if we start seeing some rollover price action, which is possible. Euro pound, just doji candlestick, really indecision. Both the pound and the euro both strengthening against the yen, and early this morning it looked like the opportunities for some yen strength were significant, but then the US stocks started to sell off quite a lot. US oil, slight bearish look to it now, although it was looking sort of on the bullish side for a part of today's trading day anyway. UK oil is just kind of upside down. We've gapped higher and we've sold off. So as of yet, we're not really getting a follow through to the upside, so it's taking a little bit of a pause at these highs. I suppose if anything, the US equity markets have actually ticked lower, so just ever so slightly. Not much response for the yen just yet. Okay, so nothing really to get into just yet. But let's see if we get this market testing the 1230 level. Just also record the line. These are all intraday levels, so hello Connor, good afternoon. Did you get any trades off this morning? I wonder. Let me just have a quick look at the dollar yen. That's the weekly low. We've extended low. We've pulled back to this level. So will we get continuation lower? We're probably quite likely to do so. 5-minute. So this is effectively a strong level to basically look for opportunities to sell this market. If we fail to break above the 111.88, and we're now down here at the 111.79, so there's only a 9 pip range. So a break below that would give us a decent place to place our stop loss, actually, with a potential for this market to move down to the 111.60 odd. So might give us a nice move lower. Now this very nearly represents a pullback and then a structural failure to the upside, so then this more recent high becomes really quite important, with the expectation for these markets to continue higher. It's just the only market that's procrastinating really is the well, a few of them, but you can see this market really struggling to break above that level. So now we're just getting this little break above that level. We did discuss the 1608, which is just above it. It's just up with these levels in here. I'll just push this up just a tiny bit. So 1609 or 1610 really. So this market does have a little bit more work to do before we kind of clear this level back up to 1700. So no massive rush to get into it, to be fair, with the potential that this market could roll over to the downside below those levels. So it could still look to tip in both directions. Now we've got a nice strong full candlestick off these lows. Hi Connor, dollar CAD, sorry, Aussie dollar CAD long. Okay, we'll just have a quick look at that one. We do have Canadian news out at 3:30, so just bear that in mind. From the Bank of Canada. What was your entry price with this one, Connor? Like, just out of curiosity. Are you getting in above these highs maybe, or? Nice strong move today, so that's worked out quite nicely. Yeah, no worries, Connor. We'll speak to you in a bit then. And you've got an order in the dollar yen. Okay, very good. Both so far so good, and a break in the Aussie CAD is a we're likely to see further pullback anyway. And you've got a sell order on the dollar yen. Yeah, I'll be looking closely at this level here, see if some actual weakness starts to creep in across the board. So interesting little picture here, guys. What would be quite an interesting trade for us would be the dollar yen extending further lower. Okay, guys, I'm just conscious of the time now, so just let me have a quick look at the news flow just to see if there's any clarity on the time at which Theresa May will be speaking. It is still tentative. It's likely to be later on this afternoon. So what's interesting as well is just some of these sort of news headlines, and you got to take these with a little bit of a pinch of salt. But the EU is said to accept UK backstop, but wants its own as well. Interesting, and maybe that's probably the nature of Theresa May's comments, which would be positive for the British pound. So maybe that might be a strong reason. And we're getting a bit of a structural failure to the downside now in the gold market. So no, not much movement there. And the problem with the euro is we just have this significant level just above it at the 1610 level, but a break above that we could be back onto the upside. So a couple of levels to really focus on. We're getting a strong sell-off now in the gold market. Still keeping a close eye on the US equities. It'll be interesting to see in 30 minutes how the US markets open, and as a result what happens at that point. So on that note, guys, please do feel free to just read the information below this video. So if you would like to join us, you're very welcome to do so. We're still offering a 14-day free trial. And that's joining us. We offer over 76 live trade rooms per month, and you're very welcome to join us for those. And if you decide to continue your membership with us, it's just $9.99 per calendar month. So hopefully you find that excellent value. And do give us a thumbs up as well if you possibly can. We've got this. You can connect with us through our YouTube channel. Of course, just subscribe. Click the bell function if you'd like to be notified of our pending webinars, and are the ones that we broadcast through our Facebook channel, and also through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn. The details are all there up on screen. So all that's left for me to do now is to thank you very much for joining us. Do take care. Unfortunately, we do have to switch across to our traders at the live trade room, and we look forward to seeing you then. From everyone here, take care. Bye for now.